Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1986 Ford Mustang SVO. Now this is based on the third generation Mustang, with this being built between 1984 and 1986, with 9,835 examples being built. And yeah, it's got a radical overhaul on the underneath stuff, as well as the engine, as well as visually as on top of that, over the the basic Mustang. So yeah, it's got modified suspension, a limited slip diff, disc brakes front and rear, and adjustable Coney suspension. Visually, it has twin exhausts, aluminium wheels, a biplane spoiler, unique front grille and hood to this version of the Mustang, and it was improved aerodynamically with aerodynamic headlights and yeah, thinner side moldings and a thinner side behind the rear quarter window there as well. So yeah, so aerodynamically it was better, and yeah, it was also more efficient in terms of its engine, because it's no longer got a V8, but we'll look at that in a minute. But yeah, interior wise, you could only get it in charcoal grey, unfortunately, so not the most exciting looking interior by any means, but as you can see, it's still all there for a mid-80s car. And yeah, this has something on it that you wouldn't usually see, and that is, as you can see there, it says unleaded premium. That's basically so the driver could choose between whatever fuel it was being put in, because you can get cheaper fuels in America, and yeah, so you weren't overworking the engine with a lesser fuel. So yeah, which is a really rather good feature, really. Kind of saves the engine, and it doesn't really wear it out as much. And yeah, being based on the standard Mustang, it's still got plenty of practicality, so plenty of space in the rear, and the lift back hatch there means you've got plenty of boot space as well. But where this car is radically different over any Mustang before it is the engine. Now normally you get a V8, sometimes you get a straight 6, but this has a 2.3 litre turbocharged inline 4, producing 200 horsepower and 240 pounds-feet of torque, which is pretty tasty, to be honest. And yeah, it means that you've not only got a more efficient engine, but you've also got as much power, if not more power, than some of the V8 versions of this car. As yeah, some V8s back in the late 70s and early 80s from Mustangs were producing as low as 120 horsepower. Some you were getting up to 165, 175, and there were a couple that had 210, but yeah, you weren't getting radically more from a V8, and in most cases, and in other cases you weren't getting any more power than this, all from an engine that is smaller, lighter, and yeah, ultimately more efficient. So yeah, really do love the fact that they've put this version of the car in the game, because some people think that EcoBoost or turbocharged Mustang engines are something relatively new, but they really weren't. They were doing it right back in the 80s, and yeah, it just shows that Ford were willing to put the investment and the time into such an engine. But unfortunately, the American buying public were not. Like I said, less than 10,000 of these were made, so clearly not a very popular car at the time. But yeah, still a revolutionary one nonetheless in terms of muscle cars and sports cars in general in America. So yeah, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. Right, so first we're going to drag strip it and see how quick it can go in a straight line, and then we'll loop around and then go back to the track. So let's see what it can do first in terms of straight line speed. Now this only weighs 3,028 pounds, principally because it's got a lighter engine, and that is actually 97 pounds less than the SVT Cobra from 1993, which we also have on this game. And that's despite that car, stripping out its interior and being made to be lightweight. So yeah, it really does go to show that the lighter engine here really did prove beneficial. And yeah, 101 miles an hour across the speed camera there is pretty good as well. Granted, this doesn't have the most exciting sounding engine. It is based on the same engine that was in the Pinto, but obviously it's been upgraded somewhat in terms of its internals, not only to deal with the extra power, but also the turbocharger. But yeah, despite that, you have to doff your cap to Ford for being able to get 200 horsepower out of a Pinto engine when I don't even think they were producing 100 horsepower in stock form. So yeah, that is pretty impressive. And yeah, this, as you'll see once we get around the track, is also pretty reasonable in terms of handling as well, especially in terms of braking, because of those 4 discs all round, and the fact it doesn't weigh very much. So let's look at the stats first. So we're in mid C class, so not the highest by any means, but not the lowest either. And yeah, as you can see, handling is pretty good. I don't really see the braking being as bad as that. I've had it stopping quite quickly, to be honest. Acceleration is about that in terms of stats. Speed is pretty good though, and yeah, the launch is a little bit better than that as well. It does have a fair bit of torque, but not more than, you know, some of the V8 versions. The biggest V8 and the most powerful V8 you can get in this version of Mustang from the 80s was about 285 pounds-feet of torque, although it only had about 10 horsepower more, so pretty torquey for the V8, but this isn't exactly down on torque by any means, and that is principally because of the turbocharger there. So yeah, let's get around this track, see what it can do. Now, as you can see, it's not got the highest revving engine, which is principally why it's not got the best sounding engine either. Normally that's not an issue with a V8, because the V8 pretty much sounds good throughout its range, whereas with an inline 4 you need it to be high revving to sound pretty good, but it's got a decent sound to it overall. I'll let you listen to it first and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, not the worst sounding engine, but yeah, obviously a V8 from a Mustang would sound better. But to be honest, the acceleration is still pretty damn good. 0 to 60 in 7.467 seconds, 0 to 119.983 seconds, and it going to a top speed of 141 miles an hour, which yeah, is easily one of the fastest Mustangs in terms of top speed at that time. And that's principally because it's got a 5-speed gearbox, not, you know, dealing with the 4-speed that so many Mustangs before had to deal with. So yeah, that is pretty good on that regard. And handling wise, it's also pretty decent as well. It's got a good balance to it. You can definitely feel that the suspension isn't quite as archaic as some Mustangs before it. And yeah, because of those disc brakes, you can stop fairly quickly as well. So yeah, I really do like this car. It's a real charmer. And I know I've said that about most cars that have been part of the car pass, and that could be because, you know, I've bought the car pass, and, you know, I've invested money in such a thing, so I, you know, might try and reason that a car is a good vehicle to drive on this game. But quite frankly, I've already gotten my money out of the car pass, so any car that I enjoy from here on in is just a bonus. And yeah, this is a big bonus as far as I'm concerned, because yeah, like I said, it's a real charmer. It's really nice to drive, really smooth. It's got a good power delivery. It feels like it's got plenty of torque and horsepower throughout its rev range. And yeah, I do like the look of it as well. I've been a fan of the Fox body Mustang in terms of the way it looks for a while now, and yeah, that hasn't changed with this. Certainly a lot better looking than the Ford Mustang 2, which yeah, I've never really liked at all. Also because, you know, the performance version, the King Cobra, was absolutely useless. That had less than 140 horsepower despite having a much larger V8 engine over this. So yeah, first properly sporty Mustang really, and yeah, pretty revolutionary in terms of the Ford lineup and Mustangs in general. It's a shame that the American buying public weren't having it, but still, you know, for Ford to try this at all is always a good thing, and yeah, especially since it now means that we can enjoy it. So yeah, like I said, this is part of the car pass. It's the first of 4 vehicles for March, so yeah, get out there and try it if you've got the car pass. It is a really, really good car. It's surprised the hell out of me that it's as good as it is, because I read up on it before trying it. Oh, it's got a Pinto engine. It's, you know, it's only got 200 horsepower in comparison to, you know, the way more powerful Mustangs from the 60s and 70s. But trust me, because it weighs so little, because it's you know, focusing on handling and braking as well as performance, it's far better than you would expect it to be. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.